Hello everyone, so I'm back for episode 7. So this video will be the first in this series where I focus more on the pumpkin's progress. I'll still do plant updates, I'll still share more tips and secrets and things I've been doing like I've done in past episodes. But I'll show you what the pumpkin looks like at day 15, day 20, day 25, and day 30. That will be the end of that episode, and the next video in the series will be in every 5-day increments, and then until the end of the season pretty much. So I'll show you what the pumpkin looks like now, and then I'll continue to do that every 5-day increments. Okay, so I'm back. Today is June 28th. It's a Tuesday. So I ended up going with the pumpkin at I think around 15 to 16 feet. I haven't exactly measured it, but somewhere around there. I actually cut off the one at 18 foot. The funky lobes were, it's just too much risk for me. I think I don't know really what I could have done. I think it was actually developing seeds outside the pumpkin, which is never a good sign. And then also I let it grow to around 9 dap, and it had kind of it was longer and more of an ideal shape in that respect. It was kind of an asymmetry to it, which I did not like. So I ended up going with the one, here. So one I pollinated June 13th. So right now I have a card table covering it, and then with a tarp over that. Actually 2 tarps. Because I couldn't find one that was big enough. But basically the point of this is to shade the pumpkin. You want to shade it basically from when you're pollinating until the end of the season. The reason for that is that you want to keep the skin nice and soft and stretchy so it can expand rapidly during its growth. The sun kind of causes that skin to harden on the outside, kind of ripen prematurely, and that can cause cracks and other things that can end your season early. So that's why we shade it. I got some rocks over the tarp just to keep the wind from blowing it all over the place. So here's the plant. So I'm just going to show you the pumpkin here. Today is day 15. So we say it's DAP 15, so DAP, which stands for days after pollination. Sorry, here, I'm just getting here. Okay, so here's the pumpkin. It's got a nice kind of yellowy color to it, which I think means it's going to turn orange. Normally it's pretty early to be for sure on that, but I think it's going to be at least on the orange side of the spectrum and not totally white. I do have a fan going. That's important. You want to have a fan going on just to make sure everything's dry. Right now in the heat of the day it's probably not so necessary, but also it's kind of helps keeping the area cool. But it's more important like after a rainy day or anything like that, make sure you have your fan. That's also why I use a tarp. I know a lot of people use sheets, but the sheets that I've used, they get wet and they stay wet for a long time, and it causes a really humid environment. Humid is good, somewhat humid, but when it's almost like 100% or 95%, that can cause rot and fungal issues, so you definitely don't want that. So anyway, here's the pumpkin here. So it's got a decent shape to it. It's about a little, fairly bigger than a basketball. Use my hand for reference, I guess. So it's doing pretty good. It started off pretty slow, but hopefully it'll take off here. It's kind of hard to judge it until day 20, which is 5 days away. So hopefully we'll get like 150 pounds or so by then. That's kind of what I usually try to shoot for. So we'll see you then. I'll update you on day 20 and give you the metrics there. That's when I first measure it. I'll use a cloth tape measure to measure it. I'll give more information when I do that, but it's a way of estimating its weight based off its volume. So I think that's all I can show you now. I have it on a pallet here to keep it off of the wet ground. I'm not sure exactly if this is totally necessary, but I think it certainly is, I think it helps definitely to keep it like fair ways off the wet ground instead of just the mill fabric, because sorry, I should explain more. Basically this is mill fabric they use in paper mills. It's kind of for filtering the pulp when they make paper, and so I have this is a 5 foot or so by 5 foot sheet on a pallet here. I actually stuck a pallet. There's one pallet here, and then I sawed the pallet in half and put the 2 sides on here just to try to kind of make it a little larger. But anyway, I think it helps to keep it off the ground and prevent rot, because you can see it's really wet here. I think partly the reason is this is kind of a low area, and so it's kind of a lot of water and stuff has been kind of pooling around here. But you definitely don't want the pumpkin to be on, you know, on something that's wet or that stays consistently wet, because then you'll rot the bottom, and I don't think I have to explain to you why that's bad. Okay, but the other thing I did here is I had put the pumpkin on some sand here. I just had a little foam pad here for some cushion, but that's not necessary at all. But I have a thin layer of sand here, and the idea for that is for the pumpkin to be able to slide as it grows. So that's very important. I also, sometimes when it's young like this, I can kind of adjust it during the heat of the day, just so that it doesn't like grow over its blossom end, or even the reverse where it kind of does a face plant into the ground. Try to keep that kind of stem to blossom lines somewhat level at least. Yeah, so I think that's everything I have here to show you right now. So let me just get out of here. Sorry. I'll fold that back later. So one more thing I was going to do on this one I'm going to do tonight is normally on the end of June, which is like right around here, is when I want to start spraying for powdery mildew and downy mildew and other kind of fungal diseases on the leaves. You want to get ahead of it early, so even though it doesn't really start now, what I use is a systemic fungicide, and so it takes a few applications in order for the plant to become sort of resistant to it, or at least be able to fend it off when it does happen, which is usually around August or late July. So what I use, and there's a bunch of fungicides out there, I use mural fungicide, or I think it's also called heritage fungicide. It's pretty expensive, but a bottle lasts you for a lifetime at the rate that you use it. I use it, I think, I'll put it in the description. I'm not exactly sure what rate it is. I think I'm gonna have to check, but I think it's like a 1/4 teaspoon per gallon, although I'm not totally sure on that. But yes, definitely do that around end of June. So do it usually in the early morning, or I guess kind of in the evening, I guess is fine, just as long as the leaves aren't super wet overnight, because that also can cause fungal issues. But anyway, just needed to tell you that there. So I think that's all to show you here. I did actually end up pollinating another pumpkin here. This one I also crossed at the 1953, the small plant back there that I showed you earlier. So in case something goes horribly wrong with this one, which I hope it doesn't, we'll at least have an option potentially. So yep, I think that's everything. So I'll update you on day 20 and see how big the pumpkin is then. So for now, bye. Okay, I am back. I'm so sorry again for not updating you sooner. I said I was going to update you on DAP 20. However, I was really busy on that day, and I guess this just didn't really happen. So anyway, today is DAP 25. It's July 8th, it's Friday. So I'm going to show you what the pumpkin looks like now. As for the plant, I've kind of curled the vines around here. So I've actually terminated, sorry, I should back up here. There are 20 secondary vines behind the pumpkin. There's 10 on this side, 10 on this side. I've terminated the back 10. So I've terminated the back 5 on this side and the back 5 on those sides. So those are deadheaded and buried. And then the front 5 and the front 5 on that side, I'm going to curl around and kind of run all the way down the side of the garden here. So I've got, this is one secondary, or the first secondary, another secondary, blah, blah, blah. This is the last secondary, and then I'm going to have tertiaries coming off this secondary. So like a kind of what they call a pitchfork, basically. So this one's actually already ahead for some reason. And this one's actually behind right back there. But I'm having tertiaries running off this vine to fill up this extra space, and then I'm going to curl this vine in. So we're just going to have a bunch of vines running in this direction. But I'm thinking all the way to the end of the garden. And then I have, this is the other part of the plant. This is the plant in front of the pumpkin. This is the main vine here. And I think I'm going to use that to kind of fill in around this area. and etc., because it's going to have the same thing on the other side of the plant there. So that's going to be basically my vine pattern. The idea is to emphasize the newer part of the plant, since the older part of the plant, that kind of fuels the plant itself. It also fuels the early stages of the pumpkin growth. But usually by like August, or maybe like end of August, I don't know, maybe mid-August, this part of the plant, the older part of the plant, kind of starts to become less productive. And so if you emphasize the older part of the plant and you don't emphasize the newer part of the plant, basically your growth just slows way down at the end of the season, like way down, because you know those older leaves are just old and tired, and they're just not very productive. And so that's not really what's growing your pumpkin at that point. So you really want to try to get, you know, most of your garden, well, half your garden, say, or I don't know, 2/3 maybe, of kind of newer, fresher stuff, to kind of fuel that pumpkin later in the year even. So that's what the tertiaries for. Normally the tertiaries will be, you know, younger than, like, say, some of the secondaries here, and like come September might be old and not very productive. So you can like think of it like stages, like stages of a rocket or something, right? If you know, you kind of want to separate your plant into different like ages almost, or kind of I guess that's way to put it. So the oldest part of the plant, you know, kind of does its thing, and then kind of dies, not really dies off, but kind of becomes less productive. And then the second, or the next stage, kind of does, you know, it contributes its part to the pumpkin, and then it becomes non-productive. You get the idea. So that's, I guess, kind of how you determine a vine pattern. The garden's 34 feet wide, by the way, so these are 17 foot long secondaries. I'm not sure if I mentioned that, but anyway, that's one thing I've done. I've also done my second spray of powdery mildew spray, so that is actually confirmed. It is actually 1/4 teaspoon per gallon of that mural stuff. There's a bunch of other fungicides. I've heard of Agrifos systemic fungicide. I've heard of a bunch of other fungicides that work just as well. I just happen to have this bottle lying around. But so that's one thing. The other thing is that I've updated the kind of shelter for the pumpkin. So it was originally under a card table with a couple tarps over it. So now I've got, moved this 5 foot by 5 foot easy up canopy, and then I wrapped this kind of gray tarp thing around it to really block in all the light. I mean, it does actually let a little bit of light through, but I mean, it doesn't have to be absolute pitch darkness, but just as long as you're, you know, shading it from the harsh sun. So that's, you want to do that the entire season from pollination until you pick it. And that's just to keep the skin nice and soft and stretchy, so it can really put on the pounds. So let me just show you what the pumpkin looks like now. It is, again, day DAP 25, so 25 days old from pollination. And okay, here it is. How to get in here? Sorry. Okay, so here it is. I just measured it, so it was 263 pounds on day 25, DAP 25. I think it's pretty good. I think I was aiming, I would have liked it more to be around 280, maybe even 300 pounds, DAP 25. But it's I think it started off very slow, like very, very slow, but now it's really picking up the pace here. Hopefully it was averaging it grew like 36 pounds or something, I think. Yeah, it was like 36 pounds since yesterday night. And then it was like, I think an average of like 34 or so for the last 3 or 4 days. So it's putting on pounds for sure. Hopefully I'll see 40-pound gains here soon. But just an overview of the pumpkin so you can kind of see it's certainly wider than it is long, which is, not bad or anything, but sometimes this is just my personal preference. I just like a longer shaped pumpkin, but it's not a wheel or anything. That's what I was most concerned about. I was going to turn into a wheel. That's like where it's like a tractor tire stood up, where it's like a foot long and 6 feet wide or something. That's not ideal because it puts excessive stress on the blossom and you can crack it. And it's also not a very there's a lot of tension inside or on the pumpkin, so it's harder for it to gain a lot of pounds. But I think the shape is actually pretty darn good. Anyway, that's the pumpkin. There's one spot that does kind of have me a little concerned, not a whole lot, but you know, a little concerned, and that's the blossom is kind of an innie, so it's kind of, you know, it's kind of grown inside the pumpkin, or actually the pumpkin's grown over it. I don't think it's too big of a problem, but what this shape can kind of sometimes happen is it'll split because there's a lot of tension on this. But then again, there's just as many kind of innie pumpkins that make it to the finish line, so cross fingers here. Hopefully it'll hold together, stay in one piece until the way off. You know, either this part will grow over and kind of pinch it in, which will relieve the tension, or it'll split, which I really hope it doesn't, because it's growing really well. So anyways, yeah, that's the overview of the pumpkin. And then I just also wanted to show you how to measure it. So well, I measured it day 20 and then a few other days because I'm paranoid. Just kidding. No. I just wanted to kind of figure out daily weights, but most people don't do that. Most people just do like 5-day increments. So they'll measure day 20, they'll measure day 25, they'll measure day 30, etc. Anyway, so in order to kind of estimate its volume, estimate its weight, it's based off an estimate of its volume. So basically, there's a sum of 3 measurements that you add together. There's a measurement from side to side, so you just use like a long, soft fabric cloth tape measure, and you measure so straight down from the side of the pumpkin down to the sand, I guess, and then you go up, over, and then straight down, and then that's your side to side measurement. And then you do the same thing for the stem to blossom side, so you go straight down all the way up, and then straight down. And that's your stem to blossom measurement, and then your circumference, which is all the way around this way. So kind of a cross section of the pumpkin, horizontal cross section of the pumpkin, and in that direction. And then those are your 3 measurements. Add them all up together to get an OTT, a total measurement. It's called over the top, which makes you think it's like a side to side measurement, but I don't know why it's called that per se. But that's actually the sum of 3 measurements, not just the side-to-side measurement or stem to blossom. I guess it's also over the top. But then you use that measurement. I'll put the link in the description. There's a calculator. Actually, I guess there's a few charts out there. But there's actually this calculator that gives you, I think, you know, the chart, there's only like a few increments that apply, whereas this one you can put any OTT number and it'll give you a weight. But basically, that OTT number, when you enter it into the calculator, it'll give you the estimated pumpkin weight. So that is whatever this is estimated, like at the end of the season, that is what is compared to its final weight. And so the difference, or the percent difference from its final weight and then its estimated weight, that's called its percent over, or hopefully not under, chart. So when you like hear a pumpkin that went like 9% heavy, that's because its actual weight was 9% heavier than its estimated weight. This is the 1940 Urena, and it's produced several pumpkins over 10% heavy, so I'm hoping that this one does the same. It's got the genetics to go heavy, i.e. dense, compared to what it's estimated as. But again, I think that's all I can show you. I guess I put more sand under it, and you want to keep doing that as it grows back. And you can kind of see here too that there's a little bit of tension building up in the vine. I don't think that's anything for concern, obviously not at this stage, but when the pumpkin, like say, gets 700 pounds, 500, 700 pounds, you know, you may have to slide it backward. So if I do that, I'll show you how to do that in a future video. But that's one thing that's gonna probably have to happen here. So anyway, yeah, so today is day DAP 25. I will update you again on DAP 30. Hopefully then it'll be 500 pounds. That's what I'm aiming for, is 500 pounds. That'll be really good if it's 500 pounds. We'll see. That's what I'm aiming for. And I think that after I show you what the pumpkin is at DAP 30, that'll be the end of that episode. And then I think the next episode then's going to be just purely kind of OTT measurements and numbers. And then maybe if I have a few other kind of plant updates, I'll do that. But it's just going to be like kind of a series of, you know, snapshots of like, say, day 35, day 40, day 45, day 50, etc. and that'll comprise that video. But anyway, I think I've jabbered on long enough. But anyway, I'll see you again in 5 days. So for now, bye. Okay, so I forgot to tell you kind of what I've been doing fertilizer-wise. So basically, it's been the same organics I've been using all along. So it's the seaweed humic acid combination 5-2 seaweed humic acid, the fish fertilizer on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, the essential companion on Sunday. I was going to probably do compost D also on Sunday, but I'm not sure when that's going to happen because I have to set up the whole system. So we'll see when that happens. But that's another thing that you could do with the essential and the companion, I guess, or any other really day that you're doing organics. Combine it, say, with the fish and the seaweed would on Monday, Wednesday, or Friday would work too. So that's what for the organic side. For the chemical side, I have kind of been kind of not really doing a whole lot. I've done a tissue test, and I was surprisingly quite a bit low in nitrogen, and sulfur. So I did basically what the foiler tissue test, said, and I applied some ammonium sulfate to try to up that. So I guess that's kind of one things that you got to watch out for is, when you're growing pumpkin, you're thinking, oh, pumpkin, etc. That's the only thing that's, kind of going on. But, you're still, growing a lot of plant, and you're still kind of needing nitrogen. So if you're using only your phosphorus and potassium fertilizers, like I know the 05234 fertilizer is really popular. Again, that's the 0 first done. There's no nitrogen in that. So what you can do is you can kind of end up like where I was, and you can get really low nitrogen. And I'm not sure if that's why some of these leaves are kind of yellow here, if that was nitrogen, or I think that might have been actually potassium overdose or phosphorus overdose. But anyway, and you can see how big the leaves are, and back here they're like 30-inch leaves, and then here they're like really small. So I think that's probably why it was a lack of nitrogen. So again, you really, from this point on, you really want to do as many tissue tests as you can. Like probably like, I know they're expensive, but like, every other week, or even potentially like every 10 days or every week, honestly, because you really want to moderate what your plant is absorbing, because your soil could be perfect, but for whatever reason your plant's not absorbing it. Maybe it's because of pH, maybe it's because of something else, but you really want to make sure that your plant is the ideal ratio of nutrients, because that's really important. And then again, like kind of the amount of nutrients, and the only way to really know that for sure is by doing a bunch of tissue tests. And you basically want to really stick close to the tissue test markings. And so you can kind of use, say if you're low on potassium, you want to feed potassium. If you're low on phosphorus, you want to feed phosphorus and potassium, etc. You can maybe go like ever so slightly higher of potassium and phosphorus in the tissue test recommended, but like not really a whole lot, like at all, because the problem with being too high is that then you can start to lock out other nutrients, because there's a certain ratio that needs to be kept. But basically you don't want to go, like, even if you had the correct ratios, but you don't want to go crazy over the top, because then the problem then is you have, too much, solute in your soil, right? And your pumpkin grows by absorbing a bunch of water, right? And so the roots do that by kind of a gradient difference in the soil. And so if you have a ton of, solutes and a bunch of fertilizer, like over the top, like too much, like not only are you can be like burning stuff and causing other issues and, deficiencies in other nutrients, because you're high certain ratios that need to be kept. But on top of that, you're reducing the plant's ability to intake water, because that's how the roots intake water, through the gradient difference in the soil, kind of not really osmosis, but well, maybe it is actually, I don't know, something like that, to absorb water. And you want to try to keep it right on that, on the money for the tissue tests. But as far as kind of, if your soil isn't as jacked as mine, and you're kind of low, you can kind of do like, again, a little micro feed kind of dose, kind of just to try to, I guess what, kind of up, give the plant is taking out, or give the plant what the plant is using. Try to, I can't think of the word, but to moderate that, I guess. I don't know. Just because the plant's using a bunch of nutrients, and then you want to try to give those same nutrients back, so the cycle's kind of kept constant. And as far as that, I've been using the 6-30-30 plant marvel fertilizer, so that's a good one. And then like later in the year, or like I guess ever, if you're lower in potassium, just potassium, or that's one of the nutrients that you're low in, I really like the 0025 growth products fertilizer. That's a really good one. I know a lot of giant pumpkin growers use that fertilizer. Anyway, that's I think that I buried vines here. I actually did run out of dirt, so I had to get some more dirt. And this dirt that I've got kind of has this weird hydrophobic effect that's going on. So I tried to wet it a bunch of times with the watering wand, and a nice good slow rain would, I think, help that out. Yeah, you want to stay on top of vine bearing, stay on top of pruning, making sure the tertiary vines don't go crazy out of control, unless like these ones which you want to grow. Again, I think that's all I was gonna say. So yeah, anyway, for now, bye. Okay, I'm back. So today is day 30. So it's estimated to be 444 pounds this morning. It's evening now, so it's probably closer to like 460 pounds, I hope. So I just want to give you just a general view of the pumpkin here. So she's really wide. It's kind of more like a wheel shape. If you think about like a stood up tractor tire, it's kind of the shape. It's a little longer than that, but it's kind of hoping she'd be a little bit longer, like out to here. But it is what it is. It's got a nice symmetrical shape too, so that's good. But there's a few things I wanted to show you here. So one thing is, if you can see here, there's you can see there's like kind of the vine zigzagging here. That's because the pumpkin is growing forward as much as it does backwards, or maybe a little less, but nevertheless, it's building up compressive tension, I guess, on the vine. And so that's kind of causing it to kind of bend like this and even kink. I think it's starting to kink here, which is no good, which is why tomorrow, in the heat of the day, because you want to do it when it's flexible, I want to move it backwards to try to relieve that tension, to try to straighten that out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a ratchet strap around the pumpkin. I'll kind of cushion it with like some t-shirts and like socks or other kind of soft like towels or something soft, kind of even like some foam, pool noodles, something like that, to not so the strap doesn't dig into the flesh, because this skin is still soft even though it's day 30, because you don't want to have the strap, because there's like a lot of force on that strap when you're pulling it backwards. But basically what I'll do is I'll probably park the tractor behind here. I'll put it in park, and then I'll attach the strap to the tractor, and I'll ratchet. So you don't want to I'm not brave enough to pull the pumpkin back, like attaching it to the tractor. So I'm just gonna have the tractor parked there, and then just ratchet the strap back. And just careful, just check it constantly. This is kind of a little bit of a nervous, kind of a bit of a nerve-wracking, I should say, move, because you don't want it to come off the vine. That's why you want to do it during the heat of the day. And I want to show you that there. And then as far as just general growth is concerned, it's been doing around 36 pounds a day for the last 5 days. So not horrible. But I was hoping it would be closer to 40-45, but hopefully that'll be that average here soon. So yeah, hopefully I'll update you in the next episode, since this is gonna be the end of this episode here. But yeah, anyway, the blossoming still looks good, so that was kind of having me a little nervous here. I mean, the season's still not over yet, but got a long ways to go, but it's doing good. It might this part might close off, and the blossom might get sucked into the pumpkin, but overall it's doing pretty good. So anyway, I think that's all I'm going to show you now. So next episode will be more updates. So bye for now.